I feel like I make an impact
Oh
on the
yeah.
people around me, like the
Oh yeah,
people
you're
around
definitely a people pleaser for sure,
me.
in a good way. Not like because you're actively
Yeah.
trying, but like you're charming, you're charismatic, you're fun to be around, and you really do make an active effort to like get to know people. Like you understand if it's going to be like at a certain level, like where I call us boys, right? Like Jenna, you know my life, you know the history, you know the kid, like blah blah blah, right? But you know, like if I can have one thing that I know I can have in common with it, you're still going to make that effort. So like
Yeah.
that's completely true. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I live more. I just live like I believe in like you only have right now, and it's just like if this is my only moment that I have right now is doing this interview with you, like I want to make sure that this is the best that I can do.
Hello and welcome to the second rendition of the I'm Breaking Into Tech podcast series. I am KJ, hosting KJ's Korner, my little piece of the internet where I interview technical professionals, talk about their story, and see how they got to the place that they're at. And hopefully you can follow the same path if you're watching this, or it's a nice way to get to know people. And with me, I have Jay Chain, someone I actually used to work with, which we will discuss. He's an account executive at Zendesk. First and foremost, dude, I know we were cutting it up a little bit before this, but how are you? How are things?
Man, it's a great day. Just coming off the fourth, so
Sure.
gotta. We just ended a quarter over here, so
Okay.
that means you gotta play hard and then gotta get back focused now. So I'm feeling
So
good.
cool. So let's actually use that as like the first little thing here, right? So quarter end, that's something that we're always going to experience, whether if we're involved in this selling motion. So if you are breaking into technology and you're going to be in the selling motion, end of quarter is always something that's top of mind, especially for an account executive. So walk us through what it being an account executive at Zendesk is, and honestly, for people to know what is Zendesk. And I'll
Sure.
just kind of leave it there, and we'll tie it back to the quarter end here in a minute.
That's a great question. So Zendesk is the leading digital communication platform, right?
Okay.
And what it's meant to do is essentially make it easier for organizations, companies, retail companies, government organizations to communicate with their customers. So essentially, like your customer reaches out from just about every channel to
Sure.
engage with your organization: phone calls, emails, text messages, social media.
Yep.
Zendesk essentially consolidates those interactions and just makes it easier for the person receiving the message to resolve the issue.
Okay.
And then for the person who is actually sending the message and the request, they're able to have more transparency, more accuracy into actually resolving the issue.
Sure. Yeah. So just quick little thing is that do you guys do kind of a hybrid model? Can you go software as a service? Can you go like on premise? Like how's that deployed?
Yeah, you can. Typically, our customers deploy SaaS. So
Okay.
Zendesk is built
Sure.
on the Amazon AWS cloud.
Oh, nice. Okay, got it. Yeah. So UiPath's built on Azure, so same type of concept. Cool.
Yep.
Awesome. So okay, so you're an account executive specifically. I know people have heard that term. What does that mean generally, and what does that mean for Zendesk specifically? Like, what's your roles or responsibilities around
So, man, account executive.
that? Loaded question, right?
No, it's a fun role, right? Like, actually, there's a gentleman who once told me, like, when you get to sell software, like, it's like you have a very fortunate job, and it's kind of like a privilege, right? Because, like, you got to think most CEOs across the United States don't have the ability to live the life and make the type of money that a sales account executive, especially
Sure.
a technology account executive, makes, right? So
Hmm.
your primary job is, everybody says you're like the quarterback, but I essentially look at it like your job is to make sure that your customer has the best experience with your organization. You're also able to resolve their needs with your
Hmm.
technology, and most importantly, you're able to manage all the people within your organization to get the customers' request resolved. Right? There's
Sure.
like a ton of people in a technology firm that's way smarter you about the processes and about the actual software. Your job as the account executive is to make sure that they can work in a cohesive manner to resolve the customer's issue.
Sure.
And then on the customer side, your job is to, understand their business, make sure that you can, come up with great recommendations to resolve their issues and their problems. And then also just ensure that they have a really great relationship with your organization and
Sure.
with
Sure. Yeah. And it's so funny that you bring up and you said smarter than you. You should give yourself some credit, right? But it's for like, and for full transparency, we used to work together, right? So I was your SE and you learned
Yep.
very quickly like how to position me. And we'll talk about that when you get to your experiences here. But I like kind of what you said there is like you didn't describe it as like, oh, I just sell stuff. You described it as no, like I'm kind of like a gatekeeper, so to speak, but in a good way. And I want to make sure that I can provide the right recommendations to make sure that our product's a good fit to build that nice relationship. It's really problem solving at the end of the day.
That's all it is at a high level. And
Sure.
you got to have a lot of, I think that the really great account executives, they're able to problem solve, but
Sure.
they also have the relationships, right?
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, people buy from people. So that's another huge, I think that's another huge component of being an AE, relationships.
So now let's go back.
Okay.
There was you were what, a young gun back in the day, back in DC, if I
I'm still a
recall,
young
right?
gun.
Yeah, back
I'm
in the
still
day.
a young gun.
Yeah, you're what? You're what, 29, right? With me?
30.
30. Okay. Aha, you're 30. I'm still 29. But in all seriousness, it looks like your first role, and I'm using LinkedIn here just for full transparency. What I'm looking at looks like you were in sales and business development. So I would say probably business development or sales development role, representative at Oracle, which I think is a big company right there. So how did you land that gig? And how did you move from being an SDR to a BDR all the way up to actually becoming what you are now, which is an account executive? Walk us through that. Walk us through Oracle, like how you got the job and just what you learned along the way and some of those like, trials and tribulations that led to, oh, I can sell this stuff, like really sell it.
For sure.
Walk me through it.
It's a great question. So it started before I got to Oracle, right? So
okay, sure.
So for me, it really started in college, junior year of college. Had a phenomenal mentor,
Okay.
a woman named Nicole Williams.
Okay.
And I was a part of a program called the National Sales Network, which is a conglomerate of African-American professional salespeople.
Okay.
A lot of them which are in medical and pharmaceutical sales, but essentially they came out with this program where they had students be a part of the National Sales Network. And that was the first cohort. So
wow. Okay. So you were like a guinea pig. Okay, cool.
I was a guiney pig, and it was luck. And just to have that opportunity. And so I met Nicole.
Absolutely.
And essentially she gave me I had my first internship in college she owned a State Farm and did some sales on the side. And so she gave me my first internship and I kind of like learned about like customers, right? And how do you treat customers? Customer support and customer satisfaction goes a long ways, right? Because sure, anybody can handle a happy customer. What happens when your customer is not happy? Right. And how do you
yeah. Like, so what do you do when they're not happy? Right. Like what so what'd you learn? Yeah.
What I learned was just trying to understand the problem from the customer's perspective.
Okay.
And sometimes I would put myself on the customer side, right? Especially if the customer is right. At least let them know that like I understand where you're coming from. I'm gonna do everything within my power to resolve this issue. Sometimes I may not be able to, but at least you know that I'm on your side, right?
And I think trying.
You should try, and the customer should feel that. Like that's a feeling. That's not something you can just like put on a piece of paper and say sign here, right?
Yeah,
that's something you have to really care about. Yeah, that's the key. I learned how to care for customers and care for people in college. Okay, that was the key thing I learned how to do. Because my sales acumen was still not that high.
Well, I mean, you were what, 19, 20? You know what I mean? Like, we don't know anything at that point, right? Like, so.
Fair. But yeah, no, I did that. And then she got me a pharmaceutical internship in my senior year. So it's like I started getting into it. And I had to go door knocking to different hospitals.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So you were almost doing outside sale, like almost inside but outside, legitimately. So you were showing up at hospitals?
Showing up at hospitals, man.
That's crazy. I didn't know that was a thing. Wow. Okay. So what'd you do? You go up to like reception and be like, how did that work?
It was cool, man. It was interesting. Like, I think I booked one like really good meeting right that summer. Like one legit, like where we started to go down the sales cycle. But it was cool because I had to really step out of my comfort zone, right? Like here I am, a young man, but like people would take my meetings, right? Like, so
right. I mean, that's the whole gig, right? Like, who can you get on the phone? Yeah, or have a conversation. Exactly.
And I was trying to get meetings in person, right? And so that was on my thing. Like, it was. I always recognize like the phone is great, Zoom is great, right? We're talking about. We just met in person a few weeks ago, and we hadn't met each other the 3 years prior to meeting.
Oh yeah, that's true. Oh yeah. For context, so we also volunteer with this program. It's called Operation Smile Bright. Jay is a part of it. He got me included to teach automation to high school kids, which also, so they're actually our guinea pigs for our first rendition of the curriculum we're building. And yeah, you're so right. Like, we only had the virtual connection, but it felt like I had known you forever, because it was literally 3 weeks ago in Nashville, right?
Yeah,
When we visited the pencil company. Yeah, that's crazy to me to think about. Like, little side note here on the story, but I find that fascinating. That, like, and I think it's a good testament to you too, just to kind of give you your flowers a little bit. And I'd like to talk a little bit more on that, like, transition into the BDR stuff. But it's a testament to you being able to build a relationship that I felt like we were boys. You know what I mean? Like, I legitimately was like, oh, I'm going to meet up with Jay. I don't care. Like, I didn't need to meet you. I knew you were going to take care of me. And you did, obviously, of course. And, like, that's like a testament to your character. So, like, it obviously makes sense that you can rock an account executive role, because really at the end of the day, you have to be like the person who can build the best relationship, and you clearly do that. So I just want to give you your flowers a little bit while we're sitting here. I know I do this all the time, but, like, I just want to make sure, like, he's a good one, right? And it's true. Like, this is no BS here, right? Like, legitimately, I did not see you in person ever while we were working together.
No, ever. And it wasn't that, but then once we met in person, it's like we opened up even more, right? Like, we really got to experience each other. So it's like, even when I was a BDR, right? Like, so all right, we go back to how did I get in? So essentially, fast
you're gonna tie it. I know you're gonna tie what I'm saying.
So,
go for it, man. Go for it.
I got into So essentially, I got into Oracle. So National Sales Network has this conference, and you essentially compete and you show your sales, your salesmanship. And dude, while I was in the parking lot leaving, I never interviewed for Oracle. While I was in the parking lot leaving, a gentleman named Richard Harden.
Okay.
He was an SE. And
so for people who don't know, sales engineer. That was his role.
KJ's role. KJ's previous role.
Mm-hmm. And it's still my role. I'm still doing sales engineering. You never leave the role. Like, it's a methodology. You know what I mean? Like, even if you're doing other things, it's like, can you demo this? Yeah. Okay, cool.
No, he walked up to me in the parking lot.
Okay.
And he said, young man, like, they had interviews, and I was trying to go into, like, bio, like, medical device sales.
Because that's what you had done before. Yep, that makes sense.
That's what I was familiar with. I wasn't familiar with software. And
especially Oracle, that's a huge change from probably like a product to, like, oh, here's an entire enterprise resource planning, like, platform.
Yes, huge. And he just walked up to me in the parking lot, man, and he's like, "Why didn't you come interview with us?"
Wow,
and
that's probably really cool to hear, though. At your age, at that
and
point.
I was like,
yeah.
What do you mean? I'm literally like, sir, what are you talking about, sir? Like, who are you guys? I had no idea.
Right.
About this company. And he's like, man, we're Oracle. And he kind of, like, broke down with AEs made. And this was the line that got me, dude. And it was a couple things that got me in the moment. He said, young man, my like average AEs are bringing in 250. My really good AEs are bringing in 500.
Sure.
And the guys who are crushing it are bringing in $1 million a year.
Okay.
And I was like, what? Like, I didn't believe what he was telling me.
Well, why would you, right? Like, that's like,
this is absurd.
You have no idea what that even means, right? Like, you're like, oh, okay, there's this selling thing. I think I can do a good job at it. And then, like, oh yeah, do you want to become like a multimillionaire? Like, here you go. It's like, what? Okay.
What?
Like, and I think that to be candid, right? And this is just a little experience, is like that's what gets people to want to break into technology, right? So it's a real thing. But I think we should also talk about the attainable aspect, and I think we'll get into that with, like, the role a little bit more. But, like, for those of you who are, it's like, it is real. Like, I mean, if I was on a comp structure, I mean, Jay and I probably could have pulled, if territories had been a little bit better, so on and so forth, right? But I mean, we could have easily pulled, 250 easy on a W-2 in any given year, and I don't see, like, it would have been a crazy stretch to hit. To be honest with you,
no, we hit. That was.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. I mean, the way UiPath is, we're salary plus, a bonus, which I actually like, to be honest. Like, I like the security of it because I don't have to grind as hard. But that's just me kind of showing my cards here. But there are at other places where
this is about, right? So, like, you got to have some vulnerability to this stuff, because
absolutely.
How else are somebody going to even know to take this as a career?
Right. So so he gets you on the hook, right?
He gets me on the hook.
So what do you do? How do you get the
job? That wasn't it. His car pulled up in the garage. We're in the hotel garage, man.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, he got the 750 BMW. Like, I'm just seeing
Sure. Yeah.
whole package, and
Yeah.
the light bulb moments are just going off. Like, I'm like, yo, sir, let me get your information.
Of
I didn't
course.
even say anything. I called him. I looked up Forbes magazine,
Mm-hmm.
and I looked up how much AEs made.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, yeah, I was like, this is not lying to me. Like, this
I
is
mean,
the
yeah,
truth.
it's an average. I mean, yeah, and there's something to be said about when you're asking like how many of your reps hit quota, how hard is it to hit quota? These are things that are different, but like to that point, it's real. I mean, yeah, the numbers don't lie. There's stats that prove it. Yeah.
The numbers were there. And so I got his information, and I said, sir, I called him like a week or two later. I said, sir, if you want me to join Oracle, will you write me my letter of recommendation?
That's huge. Okay, continue. Go on. I think that's just a great little like using a network based on a conversation and being like, hey, like, are you willing to go to bat for me? And I'm assuming he did, right?
He went to bat for me.
Yep, there it is. Cool.
Yeah, so that was the kind of full circle moment, right? He
Wow.
goes to
Okay.
bat for me.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, that
Like
was
I feel like we probably should have talked about that at some point. I don't think we ever did. Like that was a real cat. Like there was no. That was me actually learning that in real time. Like
yeah, man. That's how I got into it. Like
okay.
I had no idea. It kind of came to me. But then it's like life showed me the lemon, and I was like, yo, make some lemonade out of this real quick.
Sure.
Like, make something out of it. And so
Awesome.
that was kind of like the full circle moment. But going to Oracle, man, that was probably one of the best decisions I ever made.
I've heard you say that numerous times.
That is,
Yep.
you know, because you're going into such a tough environment, and anybody that's ever sold in Oracle, hope like you're among some of the tough and the best, right? And so I looked at it from a couple perspectives, right? You got to think maybe like 400, 500 people are coming in every summer out of college into Oracle.
Sure. Okay.
You know, only a handful of those people are going to make it to become inside sales.
Oh, so they really pull. So they crank out. It's almost like a seasonal type thing, pulling a bunch of interns. Okay. Okay.
Summer cohorts. You're coming in over the summer. There's different waves. When I came in, they sent you to California for 3 weeks, which was like spring break 2.0. But
sure. Yep.
You go there, man, right out of college, and you're just like immersed in it, right? Like you're seeing big tech, right? Like this is big tech. This is big dollars, right? Big buildings, state of the art, everything.
Yeah, and I think it's worthy, not to cut you off, but like I think it's worthy to say Oracle is an enterprise resource planning software. So pretty much think anything that fundamentally powers your business, whether it's an HR function, whether it's an operations function, a supply chain function, or whatever. There's usually a module inside of Oracle that achieves that specific function, right?
And
like
that's just on the application side,
right? That's what I'm saying. It's like it's massive what it has.
You have the whole technology stack, right? You can sell infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. Like there's so many components. And the thing about Oracle is like you have you're competing against the people at Oracle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like your biggest competition may not even be another company. Your biggest competitor may be the tech guy that sat across from you a year ago, and now you guys are going after the same dollar, right?
Interesting. Okay.
That's very tough, right? How do you build relationships? How do you build trust? And the thing I learned from Oracle to say, this is the most important person in the whole is a customer.
Bar none, no question, right? I mean, I know in retail we say the customer's always right, and half the time we hear about the complaining people. But I feel like in software, it's a lot more true. I completely agree with you there. Yeah.
Yeah, your customer is everything, right? Because there's been instances, man, where I've been in sales cycles where my app's counterpart has already sent over pricing and it never included my component. Right?
Oh man, okay.
And until like but I had such a great relationship with the customer, I own the relationship. And that's why I keep coming back to it. Mm-hmm. AE, you got to own that relationship. The customer called me, right? And it's like, hey, Jay, something's off here. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, well, I got da. So it's just like, I don't look at Oracle as a bad thing. Like, I look at it as like, you really had to be strong, right? Mentally, and then you really had to be sharp with your customers. Like, of course, when you're dealing with clients and companies of that size, there's a lot of install, right?
Because it was your enterprise there eventually, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And so that was another thing I got lucky with, right? Like I came into like national, like from a BDR, I was a national enterprise accounts.
Oh
So
wow. Okay, so you
that
flew,
game,
so you funneled straight into big account lead generation to eventually getting to. Okay, got it.
yeah, yeah, man.
Cool.
And so while I was there, I strategically, like if I knew you were one of the best, I aligned myself with you. And
Sure.
it wasn't necessarily like, it was just like, let me learn. Like, give me something to read, right? Like, give me something to think about. Help me develop my sales process framework so that I can be solid and really get out here and do the thing. And so the other thing that I did there was that I hopped around a lot in the beginning from different GBUs.
Okay.
And I personally like that. Like, I kind of look at it two ways right now. I'm like, if you stay in one territory long enough, of course, everybody will know you and get to know you, but you never really know. So strategically, I went from commercial to government. And then
Oh
within,
wow. Okay. Yep.
and like I would have successful years and request to go to another segment of the business because I'm like, you never know what's going to happen. So
Okay.
you want to be able to sell into any organization.
Yeah, so let's segue into that a little bit because I actually think that's a really good point you made of like almost diversifying your portfolio. I know we hear about that from like an investment perspective, but you almost did that in your roles. So you spent 4 years, so 6 months, according to LinkedIn, right, at
Yeah.
Oracle, and then eventually you make this jump to this nice little startup called UiPath. So I consider that a huge diversification because you go from really enterprise resource planning to this niche automation tool. What led to that? What was the jump? And I think I don't know if you followed Jeff, I'll let you talk about it, but what was
Yeah.
it in that same vein? You went from BDR to eventually becoming an enterprise, account executive to
Yep.
now you're going to be an enterprise account executive at UiPath. Walk us through what in your mind from like either maybe it's a technology lens, maybe it was just a job offer. I don't know. What pushed you?
A lot of different things, man. So while I was at Oracle, I also went and got my master's full time
Okay.
at Georgetown in tech management. So like information technology management. So that really just helped me
That's
like
actually my degree, undergrad, by the way. That's actually
okay,
the official title.
dope, dope.
Yeah. So, okay, cool. So we did the
Now
same thing. Nice.
and this is the crazy part. I studied history in undergrad.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Business, nothing
Sure.
technology.
But yeah, but I mean, I have my friend Mike. I don't know if you're watching this, but hey, man, he has a zoology undergrad, and now he had an MBA, and we started at UI together. You know what I mean? So it's the same.
There it
Who
is.
cares? You know what I mean? Like, did you grind? I actually think undergrad, and this is just a side note, I think it actually prepares you to just learn how to prioritize work. You know what I mean? And prioritize certain things. Like, I don't think the degree matters as much, and maybe you'll get some subject matter, but for the most part, I think it's learning how to prioritize things that matter. To be honest with you, I don't know if you agree. I digress. Anyway.
I agree. I totally agree with that statement.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, I got my master's, finished that up in 2020. And then, so I was just kind of looking at a move, right? Like,
Sure.
I
I
looked
mean, yeah,
at
4 years somewhere. You can get maybe
yeah,
a little stale. I hate to say that, but like, is that kind of where it was at?
a little stale. And then you got to think we're in COVID. So the market, right? Wall Street is like grading companies on how well they can automate it.
Sure. Yeah, that was a bit, dude. I joined 2018, man. I saw that light bulb very early on at EY, and I'm like, yep, I'm joining that because I was here at 2018 on. So
smart move. So
you know how much stock I got.
no, man, I just saw that move, and then once again, right? Like you get into an organization, you meet the people, you perform, and you just be your best person. And Jeff Sullivan was my previous group vice president. He was GVP at Oracle Analytics, which I was part of that division.
Yep.
And he brought me over.
There it is. There you go. Networking. I mean, we're going to see it all the time. Power of networking, power of building a good relationship, power of being a good performer. People who take care of you will take care of you in another life. Like, absolutely.
And I would say even in that relationship, right? Like Jeff has allowed me to be.
He's great. He's great.
Great guy. But like that's 2 times now, right? Like I went from being an inside sales rep to being on his team as an account executive at Oracle to then coming over to UiPath and having another opportunity to be an enterprise. So it's like in those relationships like that, like it goes beyond just like work, right?
Yeah.
Like these are people you meet, these are people you hang like how we hang out,
Oh yeah,
like,
for sure.
I've had the ability to meet Jeff's son, Graham, great.
Sure, yeah.
Like this is your life. These is like extensions of your family. That's the way I look at it.
Sure.
It's just like actually there was a gentleman. That's how I learned that lesson too. Tim Champ
His last name's Champ.
Dude,
Nice.
Yeah, man, from ADP. We were
Okay.
playing golf in Miami. So when I first started at Oracle, as an account executive, I covered the Southeast
Sure.
enterprise accounts. So ADT is down in Boca Raton, Florida. And this is me fresh out, like 26,
Of
looking younger
Oracle,
than
you're
young.
talking specifically,
Yeah,
right?
I'm at
Yep.
Oracle, man. This is me like first couple months as an AE. And I'm out there playing golf with this guy. And like he's
How'd
almost
you
like
shoot, by the way?
I didn't play. I mean, I played okay. We played around.
I'm just deviating on tangents.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking I didn't like in the front nine. I was kind of bossing around. Like
Okay.
I was giving them the work on the front nine. Then I kind of
Okay.
in the back nine. But
What'd you do? Get a glizzy and then put a few down
yeah,
and then
right.
yeah, pretty much.
Some beer and then just went down.
You
No, it was
got it.
so
Exactly.
hot.
Anyway,
You
I'm
know, I
sure.
had on pants that day,
Yeah.
and it was definitely like 95 in Miami.
Oh, but were you sweating through them?
I
Like
was sweating through, couldn't grip the club. No,
that's funny. Anyway, back to reality. Okay, so you're
no,
kidding
this
up with this
guy
guy, Tim Champ. Yep.
though. It's like he knew. It's like he was a customer. He knew how young I was. He knew how fresh all this was to me.
Mhm.
And he didn't tell me exactly what I needed to hear, but he told me exactly what I needed to hear.
Sure.
Which was
And what
like,
was that? What was it?
you
in
want people to
summary?
buy from you, treat them like family.
Sure. I mean, absolutely. Like
Right.
and it's so funny you bring that up because I look at like my experience and it's always been like, and you've seen this too, like my sphere of influence at UiPath is kind of wild. Like, people know who I am. And then like when you introduce me to a customer, I try to be as memorable as possible, but I'm not doing it because I'm actively trying to make you remember me. It's
Yeah.
because I don't necessarily care what your role, what your title is. Obviously, from a persona-based perspective, you would, but just like we're having this conversation, I want that to be the case. I don't want this to be, I'm showing you something because I'm the person who's uniquely positioned. That's just my role in this specific interaction.
Mhm.
But if I can go afterwards and you just can reach out to me about something else that I brought up, because I do this all the time. Like I'd be on a call, like, oh, I'm a few minutes late. I had to, help with my son, or I had to, take care of the dog or whatever. It's like I'm breaking down that barrier. Yeah, it helps from a sales perspective, but it's just like you're talking about. I want you to feel like, hey, this is a family combo. Like let's treat it that way. It's kind of a sad little turn here, but I think it's really good that leads you to Zendesk. Is at UiPath, we unfortunately go through one of the many rifts and tech layoffs, and unfortunately, you were part of that. And yes, and I know it's obviously not a slight to you because you bounced back pretty quickly, but it's more, what was that experience like through it, and what did you channel from really UiPath and Oracle, and try to maybe tie it technically because you did fall into something that's similar from like a workflow type perspective. What was that experience like, and what did you use to get yourself in the door at Zendesk to eventually have the role that you do now that you've been killing for almost a year? Like what's that experience like in the best way you can describe it?
So the riff. So this is a life lesson here. So the riff happens, right? And this never like really happened to me before. So I'm, I didn't expect it, but it happened, and I could never really be upset, right?
Okay.
Like just me being and I had a lot that was going on in my life at this time, but I could never, because I was like, here I am, probably one of the youngest AEs out here on the enterprise level, getting all this tons of experience. I'm like, the experience is not going to go anywhere, right?
Sure.
Like,
Great perspective to have, by the way, but continue.
I'm like, I'm not losing any experience, right? I just got something that most people would have never had the opportunity to do, right? And to see it and to do it. And yeah, it was during COVID, which made it a little challenger. Like
I mean, a lot of, literally marketing teams were getting slashed, like people, all across the board. It wasn't like and I honestly, I think a lot of good people got let go during these too, due to unfortunate circumstances as well. So like, it was just honestly, for lack of it, was a shitstorm of just a bunch of nonsense.
I mean, new leadership, new management, all new CEO. So
yeah. Oh yeah, that was all going on during that time.
Like, I didn't lose anything. I never looked at the situation from a loss perspective. I'm like, dude, I just gained a ton of experience. Like,
sure,
I'm way more competent. I think Jeff and I spent so much time really developing my sales skills. Like, even though you're constantly working on it, but we spent so much time like learning how to prepare for the meetings, like really understanding how to shorten the sales cycle, right? Like, cause you could be going through emotion to sell somebody, but like if you don't know how to work the time accordingly, if you're not figuring out how to get through all these steps to get to the signed order, you're wasting time, right?
Sure.
Like, and time is everything. And when you're selling, I don't care how good the relationships are, you still up against a clock.
Sure.
And so, I feel like we spent so much time getting me better at that I wasn't upset at anything. And so
Sure. Okay.
I lost that job, fortunate people's problems, you get severance. I got severance. But just so happened, one of my previous mentors at Oracle that helped
There
me
it
get
is.
filled was the RVP at Zendesk. And what happens?
Riding coattails, baby, but in a good way. But like, okay,
Yeah.
so
But also, like, it's a testament to my work too, right? Like, they
absolutely,
understand,
yeah,
like,
sure.
they understand that if I come into an organization, what am I going to bring? What am I going to bring for your people? What am I going to bring to your teams? What ideas am I going to bring? Right? I'm very entrepreneurial in my mindset, so it's not just like we're bringing them on. It's like, no, like, we know that this person is going to add value, also to our people, right? Like, I feel like I make an impact.
Oh yeah,
The people around me, like,
you're definitely a people pleaser for sure, in a good way. Not like because you're actively trying, but like you're charming, you're charismatic, you're fun to be around, and you really do make an active effort to like get to know people. Like you understand if it's going to be like at a certain level, like where I call us boys, right? Like Jenna, my life, the history, the kid, like blah blah blah, right? But like, oh, if I can have one thing that I know I can have in common with it, you're still going to make that effort. So like that's completely true. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I just live like, I believe in, like, you only have right now, and it's just like, if this is my only moment that I have right now is doing this interview with you, like, I want to make sure that this is the best that I can do.
Love it. I love it. So okay, so you follow the RVP.
So
go ahead.
It was funny because my manager's manager, Ben Johnson, over here at Zendesk.
Yeah.
And we had talked about me coming over here to Zendesk before I went over to UiPath.
Wow. Okay. So this was almost a long time. Okay.
Yeah, like, these are like, once again, but to the family, like, I've met Ben's wife. I've been to their gym.
So it's not even really an interview. It's more of like, what experiences are you bringing to help us out in our selling motion? Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Like, Ben took me to all the nice lunches and dinners before anybody else did, right? Like, this is like, once again, like, there's been, I need to do a segment with all the mentors, but anyway,
I know, for real.
There's been so many people that are just like helping me in different positions, right? And so my job is just to go in there, put my head down, and make it shake, right? But they put me in position, and I get in and I do my thing. Before I came over to Zendesk, Ben wrote my letter of recommendation.
Of course he did. Duh. Like, because that's what you do.
I was a BDR. I wanted to be an inside sales rep. The manager, Ben's son and his son played sports together.
Duh, of course, because that's just how life works out. Duh.
So who's gonna write that letter of recommendation?
Naturally. Yeah. So let's round this out here, right? So to summarize your experience, start at Oracle right out of the gate. You have an SE over there tells you, hey, you should interview for Oracle. You have no idea what Oracle does or blah blah blah, but you still are able to get yourself in there. You move up to becoming an enterprise sales executive. It looks like you did that actually pretty quickly. It looks like you became. So as account manager, was that like an intermediary? Inside. Okay. So you did that for, looks like 3 years, eventually become the AE after that, after 3 years. So if you're looking for like a path, 3 years could be, would you say that's like an average? Would you say that's like
how long
could it be sooner?
So, all right. So I could have became an inside after 10 months.
Okay.
But I switched. Like I told you guys, I kept switching.
Yep. You kept switching different segments. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I went to my SVP. I got an award. I went to my SVP's office as a BDR, and I asked him to send me to Washington, D.C.
Got it.
He did it.
Yeah, because it looks like you were in Boston for a bit, and then eventually you wanted to go back to D.C. Okay, got it.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to D.C., man. So essentially, I was a BDR for like a year and some change, and then I was an inside sales rep. I don't know how long, like a year and some change.
It says a year. Yeah, about a year and a half. Yep.
Year and a half, and then I got a call. One day from because I went from analytics commercial to platform and infrastructure government. And then my commercial guys, my actual AE, shout out to Rob Watson. He called me one day and was like, dude, I think you should become my peer.
Wow. Okay, so he just gave you that vote of confidence. Like, yeah, you should do this. Sure.
He literally signed me up to become an AE.
Wow. Cool. I mean, was it like a referral thing? Did he get a
Yes.
referral? Oh, well,
Yes.
there you go.
Like,
Yeah. Sure.
like, yeah, essentially, like he referred me
Sure.
to his
But
boss.
I mean, he wasn't going to put his name on something that someone that he didn't think was actually going to make it through.
Oh,
I mean,
no,
you shouldn't be making willy-nilly referrals. You should be doing that because you actually believe. Yeah, exactly.
he's the truth. He is me learning under him, and this is the last thing I'll say. I think I had the ability to learn under such great reps.
Okay.
Right? Like, and I can name almost every AE, right? Like Rob Watson.
Yeah, you're big with names. Like you're way better than me at that. Like, yeah.
Bobby Tolson.
Yep.
Like these guys I saw make millions of dollars.
Sure.
$1 million, $500,000 every year. I'm working under them. And I'm seeing the method and learning. So it's just like, I was like, I could do this. I could really do this.
So I usually end these things with, what's the one piece of advice that you would give someone to break into technology who wants to follow your path? Would you argue it's finding really, really good mentors that are doing what you're doing and emulating that? Is that your piece of advice to break into tech, or is it more technical? Or what would be like, someone wants to follow the J-Chain path? What's the one thing they need to do? It's a loaded question, I know.
That's a hell of a question, man. I think the first thing you got to do.
That's why I end with it, because I just want to see what people come up with, like.
Well, you got to find the people who are already doing it.
Okay.
Right. You gotta go out there. You got to push your neck out there and find those who are already successful.
Okay.
And then the other thing is just be a good person. Be the best person you can be, because that's going to carry us way longer than the software ever will. And the work may change. We may be selling something different 10 years from now, way different than this, right? But the people, the industry, the way we treat each other, like that's a fundamental principle. And so I'm just gonna tell everybody that, like, treat people right, man. Care for people, because it's I've been able to say all the people that I feel like the relationship has gone right with, but like I honestly be thinking about the people that the relationships didn't go right.
Sure.
Right. Like,
yeah.
I'm like, how could I just been a little bit better than them? Like, how could I have made that a little bit more meaningful? Because at the end of the day, like, you can go fast by yourself, but if you want to go far, you got to go together, man. So
yeah. Love that. Oh, that's gorgeous. I love that. But it's true. But it's so true. Like, you're only as, single. Being alone, it's not as good as a team. And I think it alludes to something I actually even heard when I was starting at my first RPA gig. Was our director at the time said, you should be living by the platinum rule, not the golden rule. And the golden rule is treat others how you want to be treated. But he's like, I really think it should be treat others how they want to be treated. And it's really what you're talking about, is the concept of be a good human, learn enough to obviously be dangerous in your role. But you're saying, as long as you're a good human, you're probably going to be more better off. Is that really kind of the summary? And mind you, I know I'm generalizing a ton, but I think there's a lot to be said about that. Yeah. That's been my experience for sure. I don't look at my role as do I find that from an automation perspective, I'm usually the most intelligent person in conversations? Sure. I'm in the selling motion. Duh. That's that comes with the territory. It's table stakes to quote my person. But all I ever tried to do, and this, was just be human and just be like, I just want to show you how this works. We'll come to an agreement on if this technology solves your problem from a business perspective. But me, dude, I'd be saying some stupid stuff where I'm like, man, we might not be a good fit, right? And people are like, that's crazy.
Not work. It may not work for you.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that the next solution won't work for you, that I'm not even working.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
And it ties into just being creating a family, creating a network, building a good relationship. So that's so you're saying no matter what, if you want to break into tech, just find a way to humanize it.
Humanize yourself.
Sure.
Humanize it. And then also, you got to know the people. You got to know the people who are already making the moves. That's just the easiest way. And then you got to learn. You got to really just be willing to learn and just put your head down and absorb as much knowledge as possible. Because there's a lot of hardworking, brilliant people out here.
Sure.
And a lot of us are doing great things, but That's not why somebody, if you could run a 4-1 and I run a 4-2, but I have all the other things like, oh, he can read the plays and he's good with this
And for
team.
those of you who aren't understanding, this is like a more of like a football type thing. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like a football, like, oh, running a play is when they're running the ball. Like, I know people understand that. Like, usually the linemen are pushing like a hole open. So if you're playing defense, just things like that. I'm just trying to level
yeah,
set for everyone. Yeah.
for sure. But it's just like somebody could be slightly faster than you, but if you have all the other attributes to
Mhm.
surround that, they're gonna go with you because you make the squad better.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that too. I think Simon Sinek actually did like maybe a TED talk or something where he said like, how do you choose? How did the Navy SEALs get chosen? And it's exactly that. They don't actually choose the crazy highest performers that can sit there and hold their breath for 5-10 minutes. They actually choose the people who are the best team players.
Mm-hmm. Trust.
Right. Yeah.
Trust. That's it, man. That's how
Well,
I gotta end it right there.
I think that's it. I mean, that's good. So this has been a fantastic conversation. Jay, thank you very much for taking the time today. I loved it. Any parting words of wisdom or little, side plugs for yourself that you want to lay out here? If not, we can leave it at trust and that's it.
Nah, man, just trust, man. Proof's in the pudding. So, if these words are true, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, they'll still be true. And we'll have the follow-up interview. So let's
Sure.
just
For sure,
time
man.
does. Let's
Yeah.
see how time does it.
I like level set that I'm adding this a little bit as we go along is a great way to connect with you through LinkedIn, go find you and then send a DM, maybe for example, after this. Would that be a great way to start a conversation?
Yeah, we can start a conversation. We can hop on a Zoom.
Sure.
I'm all for that. So.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so he is J Chain Enterprise Client Executive, specifically on LinkedIn. He works at Zendesk specifically. Go feel free to take a look, check his profile out. Once again, thank you very much for the conversation. I know we're literally going to chat here in a few days anyway when we're meeting with the kids this weekend, but thank you once again for cutting this up with me. Fantastic session. Once again, J Chain, account executive at Zendesk. If you're looking for someone to get some advice from, obviously don't send some unsolicited stuff and expect all of the answers, right? Build a relationship like he's talking about, and I'm sure he'd be more than willing to do that. I have been your host, KJ, with KJ's Corner as part of the Breaking Into Tech podcast series. And until next time, friends, see you later.
Thanks, KJ.